Welcome to Earth, a love story. I'm your host, Robin Lassiter. In this episode, I talk about something I thought I would be letting cook for much longer. But the times are calling for it, and it's arising in me, so here we go. The episode after this one will be part 2 of my conversation with fellow experiencer Sean. That was supposed to be the next in rotation, but when things get this loud, I have no choice but to answer the call. In this episode, I want to tell you a story. This is a story that came through during a 2-month period of downloads and altered states and synchronicity storms like I've never experienced before. And in this story, I am pretending that it is the future and that the world has gone through some huge transformation and come out the other side. It could have been Armageddon, it could have been peaceful and bright, it could have been the apocalypse, meaning the unveiling, the revealing. Regardless of what it was, there was a time when the world was different than it is now. There was a time when we faced many different crises on many different fronts. And during this time, humanity had spent a few thousand years forgetting that we are a species who belong to the earth. We excised anything that couldn't be weighed, measured, physically used, and manipulated. We split body from soul, mind from emotion, the dark wildness of the feminine from the holding, guiding, linear, containing action of the masculine. And we shoved anything that didn't fit into this new story, the rational materialist story, into the underworld, into our personal and collective shadowlands. We forgot that we live in an animate, alive world that responds to us based on where we place our attention and the quality of our attention. We forgot that we are in intimate relationship with the seen and unseen world, and that our bodies are the bodies of the earth, and this wasn't all bad. During this time on the planet, we made amazing advancements in the material world. We created more wealth, ease, opportunity, and leisure than we could ever remember having, but we were also terribly disconnected from each other and from the earth herself. And the byproducts of this disconnection were unexpected and intense. Our earth began to moan with the strain of our technological accomplishments and our disconnection from the animate world and from our shadowlands. At this time in history, amidst the climate collapse, amidst islands of garbage and the ocean so large they created their own ecosystems, the rise of AI, the post-truth era they called it, the suffering and injustice and systems that had brought us here, people were split, separated, terrified. Reality had become fractured, which wasn't good or bad. It was just a new way coming onto the planet, and we didn't know how to be in reaction to that. We were collectively turned towards screens and other influence of the overculture instead of the natural world. We were lonely, dopamine depleted, addicted, unhealthy, disembodied, full of fear and ennui and apathy. And it was because of our technology that we could suddenly see that the divisions of class and resources were unfair and unsustainable. We could see and feel the straining of the earth, the wars and injustice, and dying out of insects and animals and plants and what we were doing to our children. But it was all happening so fast and felt too big. The machine of the world, the thing that eats and never sleeps, was what we had unconsciously created and worshipped, turning it into an egregore, a false god that we accidentally created because we had no idea how powerful we were. The machine of the world grew, fed by our very fear and attention until it was all that we could see. Some of us thought some cataclysm would befall us and we'd return to an imagined tribal utopia that would require the death of everything that we'd done, but deep in our hearts, we knew that we would just rebuild the same destructive thing if we didn't learn to tell new stories. And in this moment, many things began to arise at once to shake us loose from our fear and dread, to draw us across the event horizon. And one of the most potent, the most absurd, the most unexpected was that we started to learn as a collective planet that we were not alone in the universe. We started to learn that there were things that flew through the skies at night that outmaneuvered our military might with ease. We called these UFOs or UAPs, but the context and framework of the overculture was too simple because if you're a hammer, all you see are nails, and that wasn't the whole truth. Because if you peeled back just a single layer, these UFOs, these UAPs somehow revealed treasures of consciousness and forced us to shift our understanding of reality and what the world is and how it all works and who and what we really are. In that way, they were actually developmental drivers of humanity, bringing high strangeness, influence, connection, magic, horrors, ontological shock, and the gift of forcing us to have to live in the liminal unknown. And while all of this was going on out of the seeming imminence of another collective collapse on the planet akin to Lemuria, the fall of Atlantis, and the many great falls we have been through over and over and over, there came something new. It arose in response to the meta-crisis. It was a new frequency, a new vision, a new story, a new way to be, and a new thing to orient to. A group of people were called forward. While we were shaken and confused and battered and bruised, the earth herself began to call us forward. She rose up through the soles of our feet, activating and shaking us and calling us to be with the things we've shoved into the underworld, asking us to bear in our bodies, our emotional bodies and physical bodies and the nervous system which weaves them together, the reality of suffering and grief and death. And she asked us to feel it all and move through those gateways and let our hearts break. And let that heartbreak inspire us. Inspire like inspiration, inspire like breathe in, like a big shuddering inhale into communion and affinity and solidarity with life herself. She brought us to the felt knowing that we all belong to each other, and that the world is relational and we are not helpless, and that there's nowhere else to go and nothing else to do, and we are here, we are here, we are here. She showed us that she has seen empires rise and fall and was big enough to hold it all, and that it was returning to her, the big her, the capital H, her, the dark swirling feminine force of the earth herself that would guide us through. And we could see the impending end of a thing and couldn't fathom what was on the other side. We didn't realize we were pregnant with something new and the labor pains had just begun. We didn't know that doom was a mind virus and the idea that we could kill the world was a mind virus. And we didn't know that we had learned how to evolve through suffering and that now we were, in the most absurd, unlikely turn of events, being asked to learn how to evolve through joy. And we were given a blueprint in our bones, hollow now after our journey down and into the underworld of our own soft bellies. We were given a blueprint in our bones ready to receive the new story, the new way we needed to be in and with the world. We were given the directive to move from evolution through suffering to evolution through joy and creativity. We were shown that there could be a revolution through joy, a bloodless war, where we told new stories and created a reality based on the interconnectedness of us with the animate world, with the dead, with NHI, with our unseen teams and guides, and that where we place our attention and the quality of our attention, the honeycomb matrix, could actually change the world. Revolution not like the revolution of fighting and overthrow, but revolution like evolution. Revolution like the turning of a great wheel. And this vision, this reality, did not stop the horrors. It did not stop the collapse. And we wove grief and joy into our bones, and it didn't stop the overculture in its tracks, but it created something new. And this group of people began to plant seeds and build bridges and tell stories of a new way to be, with unconditional love for it all and a fierce and soft commitment to each other, and a new story began to emerge. We were creating it, telling it, singing it as we went, planting seeds for a future that we may never see. We began to install the frequency of the new thing in the very fabric of the honeycomb matrix, or Indra's net, or the holographic co-arising nature of reality, and we knew that we were working for the long self, for long time, and what we were building would serve our children and children's children, and our own future reincarnated selves, and the whole earth and her creatures, and our galactic kinships too. We called ourselves the Bridge Collective, or the Collective of the Golden Thread, or Scrappy Kids of the Revolution, but mostly we didn't have a name because we weren't exactly a unified thing. We were each our own, and we walked across the threshold through the messy middle of what we were to what we could be. We became masters at holding paradox and not collapsing the narrative, because as soon as we did, the whole thing shifted and became something new, and we were back in the liminal space again. We stabilized in the wild unknown between the formed and the unformed, and this walking across, this creating the bridge with each step was done in the space of primordial time, each of us connected to the deeply human primordial lineage of creativity. That part of the blueprint of our species that says we can literally create something from nothing. And it was done in our bodies, in the psychedelic experience of living in all of our bodies, our physical body, our mental, astral, emotional, causal, etheric bodies, all the bodies, in our multidimensional selves, slowly and with great care. We went through the deep and rich process of reclaiming our full humanness. Reclaiming our full human potential, deconditioned from the influence of the overculture, and standing firm with feet on the earth herself, our ancestors and guides and galactic helpers and angels, and past and future selves all standing behind us with their hands on our shoulders, holding us up through the horrors, guiding us forward through the death and rebirth, and at the end of it all, we became something new. A new kind of human that wasn't like going back in time to who we were before, but instead was a synthesis of all we'd seen, and through it we became something new, something we'd never been. All of us with the collective goal of seeding something new on the earth so that this time as the world teetered on collapse and another great fall, we would create something different. And eventually, the unseen world, those disincarnate beings who are assigned to help those of us who are here on earth, began arranging things from the other side so that we began to recognize each other like lighthouses, like beacons from across the world. We began to light up and see each other. We found our true kin and felt the power of the field that was created between us as we connected through our hearts and minds and all of the bodies. We learned to lean bravely in to this collective we space. We began to remember we were more than the sum of our parts, each individuating into our particular way of being, serving, loving, into our particular gifts that we were seeded with before we incarnated in this lifetime, strengthened by a field of support and nourishment that we created simply by speaking it and coming together. None of this was on TV. We weren't in movies or on screens. The magic happened in our bodies, in each moment as we lived our lives in the richness of primordial time. We weren't known or remembered by the masses, but everywhere we planted seeds and installed blueprints and frequencies and pathways, paths to follow through the disillusion of the overculture that was happening all around us. And later, when the dust had settled, and long after we'd all died and been reborn and died and been reborn, those blueprints and frequencies and pathways were found. Messages left for our children's children and our future selves. And we found the stories that blossomed from those tiny seedlings, and we built the world anew. That's the story. That's what came through. And these weighty words that were given to me during the Wild Altered State download time have stayed with me every day. And they came through in this particular way: revolution, parentheses around the R, which then expanded into revolution through joy. Revolution as in evolution, as in the turning of a great wheel, and bloodless war. I wasn't comfortable with these terms when they came through, but I'm remembering now that I did ask the 4 who are one to give me pithy, and these are pithy as fuck. I have more questions than answers today, but I trust them. I trust they are showing us a new way, and we're not in it alone, and it will take more courage and strength and hope than we've ever known. Thank you to Morgan Jenks for our wonderful musical soundscapes. You can find his musical offerings by checking the show notes. And special thanks to 2 other Morgans. My life is blissfully full of Morgans. I am replete with Morgans. These Morgans who held me and co-created with me during the wild download time. Thank you. And thank you to all of you who are living a new way of being on the planet. If you'd like to book a one-on-one session with me or learn more about my work, please visit honeyheart.me.